Happy Tuesday. I'm Brian, and this is Brian Today, the show that I film while I'm doing the laundry. To begin, this weekend was very eventful for Buffalo area sports. Most importantly, the 12-8 victory of the Buffalo Bandits box lacrosse team over the Colorado Mammoth. There are certain teams that you need to beat for standing purposes, and as a fan, there's certain teams that you need to beat just for pure psychological reasons. And the Colorado Mammoth, for me, is one of those teams where anytime we play them, I'm super nervous about it. We've faced them twice in the championship. They've beat us once. We've beat them once. It's always a tough game to get through. They're not top of the standings. Neither are we at the present moment. But anytime we're up against them, again, it's something I worry about. I was happy to see we pulled through. It was a pretty consistently good game on our part. I'd say we had one period where things got a little dicey, but we were comfortably ahead of them for all of it. What I like about our team is anybody in it can come forward and make a spectacular play that just gets us in the right place. You find with Colorado the other day, they had maybe two people who were pushing that team ahead, scoring all the goals, making all the plays. I like how well-rounded we are. Not a lot of people are into, I shouldn't say not a lot, but comparatively, not a ton of people know a lot about box lacrosse. It seems like that's changing a bit. I know locally, and we're a bad example. We've had one team for 27 years or something. It sells out fairly frequently. It's never stopped being a hot ticket around here. But other places in the country and just in general, people don't know a lot about it. Anytime I try to introduce somebody to lacrosse, they're confused by the rules. It's really a shame. If you have not watched box lacrosse at this point, if you have access to ESPN, try to find some. Okay, just watch a game or two. It's high scoring, it's fast paced, it's hard hitting, and the people who play it are normal human beings. They play their game and then they go work their other job until the next game. It's not like football or baseball where it's just a career thing to play the game, and then after you're done, you either sell used cars or talk about the game on television. We've got teachers and firefighters and everything else that play it. It's just fantastic to watch. I know this year in particular, there's been some movement to bring it more into the public's eye. It's going to be featured in the 2028 Summer Olympics for the first time, which I'm excited to see. I'm hoping, selfishly hoping that I think he's Canadian. The Canadian team will be coached by our head coach, John Tavares, the GOAT, one of the greatest players that's ever played indoor lacrosse. I know that they've made a deal for the next 2 or 3 years with Marvel Comics to advertise lacrosse. There's going to be Marvel Comics Night coming up in March of this year, I think, with the Bandits, where they're going to release a comic book about lacrosse. From the description, there's not a lot of information. From the description, it sounds like each market is going to have a cover that's tailored towards their team. And it sounds like it's going to be an explanation of where lacrosse came from, the origins of the sport, to get more people to know about it. Now, that sounds lovely, and I can't wait to get a copy and read through it. I'm probably going to try to get a few of the variant covers. I'm not usually a huge variant cover collector, but for this, I might try to do that. What I do wish, though, as soon as I heard, oh, Marvel Comics is going to make a lacrosse comic for the NLL, I was excited because while we're going to get something informative, what I was really hoping for was something like this. Okay? The 90s were a wild time in comic books, and it was a time where something like NFL Superpro could make perfect sense. A football-themed superhero that fought alongside Spider-Man. I don't have all of NFL Superpro. I don't care for football particularly. I love the quirkiness. I love gimmicky stuff in everything I'm into: music, board games, comics, um, anything I collect, toys, coins. NFL Super Pro scratches that itch. Okay, it's impossible to take it super seriously. I don't think it lasted maybe a year. Maybe there's 12 issues of it. They're kind of hard to find, but I always can grab them in dollar bins when I see them. Okay, instant replay as a villain. Anyway, I know we're not getting this for the Bandits. I would love this for the Bandits for lacrosse. If they had an NFL Super Pro esque lacrosse guy, chef's kiss, I'd be all over it. I'd have the action figure and the t-shirt. Again, it's not what we're getting, but I look forward to whatever it is we get. All right. So the next Bandits game is this weekend. If you haven't watched one before, try it out. I know that locally they're showing it on the CW here in Buffalo. It's the first time that I can remember where every team game is being shown on a network television channel, which is great timing since I signed up for ESPN for the purpose of watching the season just like a couple months ago. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, it'll be on network. I'm like, of course it will. That's all right. Moving on. Okay, so last episode I talked about Marvel United. Absolutely my favorite board game at the moment. Has been for a couple years now. I play it solo all the time. Um, One of the things about my own collecting behavior, this has, right now something to do with this, but in general, is I will like a concept or an IP. So, for example, one of my favorite shows as a kid was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Grew up with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It was a cartoon show. It was a toy line. The toys came with comic books, so it was also a comic book. They made everything He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And this was a calculated move that tied in with the change of certain federal regulations about how things could be advertised or targeted towards children, which kind of decimated all of our minds in the 80s and the 90s, and is why, everybody can't wait for the next Beetlejuice movie to come out, because we're all so hooked with these properties, really, that, came along in the 80s. It's the 80s fault. So something like He-Man comes out, and as a little kid, I love the show and I love watching it, and I think the characters are cool. And the possibility exists for me to take that fandom and extend it somehow into the world of physical items that I can have and manipulate. And pretty much that's how I am with everything now. If I like something, if I like a book character, if I like a comic thing, and I like it sufficiently, I'm going to want to extend that like into the physical somehow. Okay. And that ends up with me collecting a bunch of toys about it, or trading cards, or whatever it is. Okay. Sometimes the thing I like will be, I don't know, a movie. So I'll want a poster, or I'll want a magazine that features the characters. One of my all-time favorite TV shows, or I would say the favorite TV show for me of all time, is Cheers. Cheers hasn't been on the air in 20 years now. I can watch it all I want. I have the DVDs. That's it. But I've loved it so much, wanted to extend it more. I have Cheers signage in my basement. I have the little action figures that Mego made a couple years ago. Even though Mego didn't make Sam Malone, and I don't understand. The only character that was in every episode, the main character of the show, you didn't make him. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, I love extending my interest in something into the physical realm. And with Marvel, that's always been hard, because they'll make a form factor with some figures in it, and I'll get all into it, and then they'll stop uh, making any more of it, and then I have half of a team or something, and it always bugs me out. There's a couple lines that I could say I could really get into where they have almost everything. If I got like the Marvel versus cards from a few years ago, I had a bunch of those. They've made almost everybody into that. Hero clicks, my God, hero clicks. They've I, they keep making them. All right, that's the only thing I can think of that has been going on for that long with that deep of a character field. But HeroClix figures are super ugly and horribly painted. And I don't like the game that much, honestly. I loved Mage Knight that came out before it. That's more of like a Warhammer army versus army kind of game. The HeroClix rule set, much like the Mage Knight Dungeons rule set, I just couldn't get into. I don't know. Anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Marvel United is great because they keep on putting out these batches of characters. The characters can be used for something and they feel significantly different. There's such a world of difference in playing versus Bullseye as a villain as there is playing against Red Skull as a villain. All right. They feel substantially different. You have to do different things to make your game work. You have to strategize. Sometimes you have to strategize who you bring with you because the characters themselves have different stuff. Some characters are better at smashing. Some characters are better at rescuing. Some characters have great extra powers that play together with other characters. So there's a lot of thought put into it. There's a lot of playing with your toys, which is the fun part, right? You get these cool little figures and you do something with them. And for the longest time, I've been playing this game enjoying it as it is. But when you get the figures, and I'll show you one right now, they come in one color. All right, they're made out of plastic, and there you go. Here's Juggernaut. All right, he's clearly Juggernaut. Great little figure. The sculpting is fantastic. I love how they look. It's sort of like a chibi kind of look, but not overly done. All right, there's Juggernaut. Here's Sabretooth, right? It's clearly Sabretooth. Great little figure. All right. All the bad guys are red. All the good guys are blue. Here's Jean Grey. Right. Now, here's where it starts getting troublesome. All right. You got something like, okay, Wolverine, clearly Wolverine. Jean Grey, unless you look at her, there's a lot of characters that are a woman in a bodysuit with long hair. All right. If I spend the time, I look a little closer, I can see where the lines are on her outfit, indicating, all right, well, that's how Jean Grey's outfit is cut. But you get some of these bigger boxes of these figures, and there's so many just thin women in bodysuits with long hair. And the only real difference would be if they were colored to tell that I've got to remember, all right, well, this is probably who. Okay. It's not been a huge issue, but once in a while it's kind of problematic, especially if you take them all out of the boxes and put them up for display or something, because then it's, you know, if I see Juggernaut, no one else looks like that. If I see this lady from this far away, I don't know, is it Shadow Cat? Is it Psylocke? I don't know. Okay, so it hasn't been a huge problem, but this is my year of trying stuff that's new. And I decided, okay, everybody paints these things. I've not done it because I don't have a lot of confidence in my own ability to do a good job painting. But I'm going to try because they're mine. I mostly play it solo. I don't have to worry about anybody going, ew, look at your ugly minis. They're all for me. And, it could be something fun. I said earlier, I like to find an IP and a way to interact with it in the physical world. Painting each of these characters is going to let me do that in a new way that maybe I haven't in quite some time. All right. When I was in, the end of high school, we had a Games Workshop store in our local mall. And in beginning of college, and I had a job working in the local mall. And so I would once in a while walk over there, buy some figures. I had a couple friends that played and I would paint them. And I wasn't very good. I kind of stopped not too long into it. I sold off all that stuff as everybody moved off to college, and I didn't get to play it very much anymore. I did have a little bit of experience painting minis because of that. That's 20 years ago now. So this is really the first time I've, in any kind of serious way, as an adult, done miniature painting. I spent a little bit of time looking at people's recommendations for first-time painters, took some of that, ignored some other of it, and I have started doing some painting on my minis. Um, I am not great at it. I can't give any advice. I'm not going to do any kind of advice. But what I thought I would do today is talk about just 5 things that very early on Brian painting minis has come to believe are true, I guess. 5 things I've noticed about painting minis so far, and I will record this track over pictures of the minis that I've painted. Okay, so thing that I've noticed, number one, is that the paint you buy at a hobby store with the explicit purpose of painting minis is definitely different than those big tubes of acrylic paint that you buy at Michael's or Hobby Lobby with the purpose of painting whatever craft you're going to paint with them. Okay. The paint that you get at the hobby store is much thinner. Um, and at first, if you don't know any better, that seems like a bad plan because you put it on your figure. Hopefully you've sprayed your figure with a primer. I always spray with white because these are comic book characters and they're supposed to be bright. So even if the character is going to end up getting painted black in most of the places, I still use white as an undercoat so I can get that little bit of comic booky pop. But anyway, if you paint with a hobby paint on your figure, you're going to paint on it and then be sort of disappointed because it looks like most of that spray and the original colors are still coming through. It barely tinted the figure. And that's frustrating if you don't know anybody. But stick with it because it gets you to do layering, which even if you don't mix colors, seems to give it a little bit more texture. Um, Also, it helps build patience because my goodness, you've got to take your time when you paint these little guys. Number two thing about my painting that I've noticed, and this is maybe a negative. I'm going to try on this channel only to focus on things I like and the positives. I don't want to bash too much of anything because there's a lot of that on the internet already. But one of the things that stopped me from painting is looking at other people's paintings and go, oh my God, I'm never going to do that in a million years. Look at this. He's got right now, just thinking about the lines on the Spider-Man figures is giving me a little bit of anxiety because you see people and they've done such a marvelous job. Okay. It's intense how they paint. It's crazy. It seems like they couldn't have possibly, or they had like a 5-up version of their figure, and that's what they painted, not the minis that I've got in front of me. But what I've learned mentally to do when I look at other people's paintings of figures, and this is this is not nice of me, but it's what's getting me through and beating you know, that anxiety is I look at these people who have painted very nice jobs and I try to find the faults in it. I mean, if I can find the faults, the little ugly lines, the smudges and streaks on somebody else's very professionally painted figure, it makes me feel better about the faults that I find constantly in my own painting. Okay? If you can get over your own fear of failing at it and put it all in perspective, if I can say to myself, this guy who did this painting still messed up, even though it's great, but he still messed up, then it doesn't matter to me so much if I mess up. And I know that's sort of negative thinking, but I like to think that it's spun in a positive way at the end. Anyway, it gets me through. So, you know what? Look at other people's examples, find out how human they were in making it. It's not a robot, it's a real person who also has errors in their work too. chances are they paint them and look at them and do the same thing I do, which is go, oh, this looks okay. And then, but look at that. Number three, giving myself a little bit of self limitation here. I decided after two of these figures that I am not spending more than 30 seconds thinking about how to decorate the bases they stand on. Some of these characters have such elaborate bases and things going on with them, and I don't care to spend a lot of time doing meticulous dirt piles. I want to paint another character. So I've decided that almost all of the bases are going to be monotone. I fudged a little bit with the Professor X figure, as you can see, and he's got like a rug over half of a wood floor with a fringe on it. And I spent a couple minutes trying to paint those as different things. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? This isn't a figure of a rug on a wooden floor. This is a figure of Professor X, who's going to be in any number of climates, okay, uh, during the course of the game. So moving forward, other than perhaps billows of smoke like you see on the storm figure or explosions, I'm going to take the same paint philosophy that playmates used to use when making Ninja Turtle action figures, which is there's a lot of beautiful sculpting. We're just going to paint it one color and ignore it. And that's going to be me going forward with most of the things going on the bases of these figures. Pick a color, paint it, move on to the next figure. Also, you'll notice as you're looking at my figures that I don't paint the lip of the base. I'm thinking about, because the figures are color coded based on whether they're good, bad, or neutral. Not neutral, but they can be either side. And I'm thinking about painting a blue, red, or purple ring around the exterior to indicate that for them. But I don't know. I might also just continue the base paint over the edge. I haven't decided. So I've left it blank. All right, number four thing that has struck me as painting as I'm painting these. I got myself, well, I shouldn't say I got myself. I have a standing magnifier that my father used to use when sorting coins for his coin collecting, and I've used it for my own coin collection as well. And I brought that out to assist with painting some of the small details. And here's a fun thing I've learned. You will paint figures and they will look great, all right, or good enough for you. And then you will look at them under magnification, and they will be a horrible nightmare landscape of mistakes and smudges. The first couple I painted and I was happy with, and then I took a picture with my phone, and then I zoomed in on the phone, and I was like, oh my God, this looks horrible. Like I just threw paint from across the room and it landed on a figure. How could I think this looked good? What your eyes see and what magnification sees are two vastly different things. And even if you're going to show these off to your friends on game night and say, hey, look, I painted all these, chances are they are not going to take out their phone cameras and zoom in as far as possible to see all the little screwed up details you did. If they look good to you with your face, then they're going to look good to other people with their faces as well. Most of the people you know also don't paint minis. So any kind of job you do is going to be better than the job they did. Um, so yeah, I still use magnification to help me get the details. But eventually, if it looks good enough without magnification, that's where I'm stopping. Right. And so my very last thing, I told you I'm a collector of stuff. And what starting to paint has made me a collector of is brushes with tinier and tinier tips. I went the other day to a Joann Fabrics while my wife was shopping for clothes and found, brushes with the tiniest tips and nice big round handles. And I couldn't help myself. I feel like it's like people who play RPGs with their dice. You don't need more than one set of dice. Okay, I don't actually need most of the brushes I've bought. Like they're all, pretty much the same. I've got maybe three sizes of little brush, but I have like seven brushes, right? I will need them when they start to fray or fall apart, but I don't now. But I feel like I'm going to just keep on looking at brushes in craft stores and going, ooh, look at that one. So it might be a new problem I have to contend with. I don't know. Fortunately, they're not super expensive, but I don't need more. I have to remind myself all the time. I do not need more brushes. So that's it today for This is Brian Today. I've been Brian. As I continue to paint these, of course, I'll talk about more things that I've learned or ideas that I've come up with for maybe making paint better. Remember, I'm learning. Hopefully, the ones you see later will look nicer than the ones that you saw today. If not, whatever. I'm having fun. This is my whatever year. Do it anyway. So just another thing, and I'm trying. You should try something new too. Okay, the year just started, and you're never too old. Um, thank you. We'll see you on Thursday. Who knows what we'll talk about? Whatever crosses my mind. Echo will be out, so maybe I can review Echo. But until then, take care.